Do we have anyone else that would like to address the board? Seeing none, thank you for your remarks this evening. I want you to know that this board does listen. We hear your comments, and we appreciate the input from everyone that showed up tonight and are concerned about our students and our school district. Going to move on to the items for consideration on the agenda. The first item for consideration on the agenda is the fiscal year 23 audit. Dr. Robinson.
Yeah.
Do we want to put a timer on the
No. No. We did get our final audit back. Obviously, with the special meeting, we thought we'd go ahead and do this. We ran into an issue last January in December where we didn't get our audit until late. We only had one time to actually review it, and then it didn't become official until January, which the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed didn't like. So this actually works out well that we can do this in the next meeting and make it more official. We did have our audit done. It's done throughout the course of the summer and the fall. They usually start sometime in July and start coming in. Actually, it starts in May. We start giving them some of our information that we can give them before we finish the year, and then they start in July. Usually they pick one area to do a special audit on every year, and so that usually they come back in October sometime, whether it be food service or special education or transportation or title services or whatever it is. They usually pick one area to do a special audit on. But we did get our audit back. Just got it back actually the day of the last meeting, but we didn't feel like we could put that in everybody's hands in less than 24 hours. So everybody's got a copy of the audit. It was a good audit. I would be lying if I told you that they didn't find certain things in the audit. They usually do. They're auditors. Some of those concerns are with our gas fee reporting, which is with PSRS. Our numbers match, but the way we do our books, we're still paying for things in third quarter that we're not going to do till fourth quarter, if that makes sense. So that our numbers match, but it makes it look like they're different, if that makes sense. That's a concern that we've had for a couple of years, that we're trying to find a solution to that, but it would be changing our pay cycles on how we do that to make that work. There was a couple issues with transportation and auditing of materials there, and some of the mileages and some of the mileage pieces were different than what they were a year ago, or they were a little bit more higher than they were a year ago, so they obviously had questions about those. But we did have a couple things. Everything was within the reason, so there was no reason to report anything to DESE by any means. And honestly, you guys had a chance to read it. Overall, the audit was in very, very good shape. So once we approve it, we'll actually, it's obviously public record now, but we'll actually put them on our website with our other audits for the last couple of years as well. So, does anybody have any questions about the audit? So.
I do.
Yes.
On page 39, it talks.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, just under segregation of duties.
Yes.
How could we address that?
I've done this for 16 years, and I've been wrote up for 16 years on segregation of duties. I would imagine that North Kansas City gets wrote up for segregation of duties, because effectively what they want is to find out if you're watching Stacy, who's watching you, and then who's watching you watch you, and it's a never-ending circle when it comes to segregation of duties. I think we do a good job of segregating our duties to making sure that nobody has complete power over any one thing. You know, the person that writes the checks doesn't have the checks. The person that's putting the checks out to businesses is checking those to, you know, our actual expenses, our POs, so that we know, and that's not the same person that's writing the checks. So I think we do a good job of segregating duties.
So we've not had a problem with that in all this time. And
as you
that's
see
more
in
of a
there-
preference from them, is that
Yeah,
correct?
it is.
Okay.
I mean, there's always things that I think we try to look at in ways we can segregate duties. I just don't know that you can ever segregate to the point that you're gonna make an auditor happy.
Okay.
I'll be
Okay.
very honest.
I just want, yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
some clarification on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I started as a superintendent of schools in 1990, and for the next 13 years, I got the same segregation of duties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right
just
up.
wanted to be
It-
clear and
it's-
transparent, so.
So it goes
Yeah.
back 30-some odd years.
It does.
And before. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Under instructional staff support, which includes the activities involved with assisting staff with the content and process of teaching pupils.
Right.
Just throwing it out there that I'd like to see that number go up.
Yeah.
I think
What
that
page
it's,
is that? I'm sorry.
you know, it's part of the unaudited portion that we got
Oh,
before you
gotcha.
get into the numbers, but
Okay.
just
Okay.
basically, if we can support teachers in their, you know, continuing education
Mhm.
development, that also plays into helping our kids. So,
Okay.
I think we could use more of that as we look at budgets
Okay.
in the future.
All right.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Robinson about the audit? I did ask Dr. Robinson about the reconciliation of the 941 with the retirement. I had called him earlier today. They're aware that was, in that issue, they're aware of, and they were able to explain how those numbers
Yes.
didn't match. So that was just a fix that they were able to take care of. And I thought it was an excellent audit.
I do have one quick question.
Yes.
With regard to the odometer readings and transportation, what
Yes.
are your thoughts on that? What are we?
That's been a struggle. We've worked with Durham Transportation for numerous years on trying to get that rectified. We've actually kind of came up with our own Google Sheets so that they can better keep track of those mileages, because we are held, obviously, activity miles we don't get reimbursed on. There are certain mileages we don't, there's certain mileages we can gain extra more for because of the student on the bus. So that's something we've worked with. That is frustrating because those numbers aren't accurate. Sometimes we catch those the month of. We usually we get their report, you know, for we'll be getting November's report. We probably have it now, or we'll be getting it shortly so that we can see those. And that is a little frustrating. We've had conversations with the local office, head office, about what they can do, because Durham's a national company. I mean, we're by far not the biggest school that they deal with. I mean, I think I'm not so sure they don't have Nashville and Memphis, and I know they have Blue Valley. I mean, they have giant districts, and I'm sure at one time they used to actually have a wand called sonar, and they could actually scan the mileage when they got in the bus. They kind of went away from that, and I just don't think they're accurate about telling the mileage each day. And
So is it the actual numbers or is it the classification of those
It's both.
numbers? Okay.
It's both.
Okay.
So, yeah. Like I said, most months we can catch it and rectify it and say, hey, you can't have a number at the end of the month smaller than the beginning. So you can't have drove backwards. So,
Maybe some data entry error.
So
Yeah.
without trying to move ahead, is this anything that you consider a problem related to the lease?
With what, I'm sorry?
We're about to look at the lease with them. Is it?
No,
that big
I
of a
don't.
problem?
And I mean, it's been an issue for a couple of years. I will be honest about that.
Okay.
But I don't think it's anything that we need to quit our association with Durham or
Okay.
anything like that. It's probably more frustrating on, you know, our end trying to get that information as anything. It usually takes them a little while to get this, and we're trying to finish up our audit. I would love if this was done in October and not December, like it has been for the last 3 or 4 years. But now I'm not saying that's all them, some of that's other factors as well, so.
And this portion is not related to the lease that we're talking about
Right.
tonight.
No,
It's a
I
separate-
just,
yeah.
right.
And we will be rebidding transportation this spring anyways, so I would say by March or April, we'll have a recommendation or bids out. Well, we'll have bids out, we'll have a recommendation for transportation
Okay,
for another 3 or 5 year contract this spring. So,
thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the audit? Just want to say, I know that's a big undertaking every year,
Yeah.
and the staff puts in a lot of effort and work.
Yeah, our ladies in the office,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yeah.
Chastity,
Thank
do a tremendous job of
There's an unbelievable amount of data that comes into
there.
this.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, so I want to say thank you to the staff that worked so diligently on that to get that done, and also to the staff for, every year that I've been on the board, we've had a very positive audit, and that makes the board's job a lot easier, so thank you for that
Good.
leadership there.
One other question.
Yes.
Dr. Robinson, is the audit required or is it something that we voluntarily?
The audit's only required every 2 years, but we do it every year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, so,
And then we would send this off to Desi.
yes.
Yeah.
We'll
So-
wait till after the next meeting and we'll
Right.
make it official,
We,
because it'll be a part of the minutes, and then once it
Right.
becomes official, we'll send it off on whatever day that is, the 20th, so.
yeah, our next meeting's the 19th, and so when we approve those minutes, then you can send this off. Do I have a motion to accept the audit?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lockridge.
Second.
Second by Ms. Clark. Any other discussion?
Just a question.
Yeah.
If it's only required every other year, are we required to file it if we do it? You know, if they're late,
Right,
right?
that's a good question. I mean, we do it every year, so I
Right.
don't,
I mean, I don't think it
Yeah.
hurts to
I-
file it, but I don't, if
Yeah.
they're gonna ding us for being late in a
I
year
would
when
agree.
we've already.
They did take the
prior
point
year
back, or gave us the point back that they took away, but yeah, it was frustrating, so.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda for items of consideration is the bus lease.
Yeah, we're just looking to have a little bit more flexibility with the Dragon bus, and this will allow us to do that. A lot of times we can't take it out when we have drivers, different things like that, because they're kind of their rules, and so this would allow us to have a little bit more flexibility on that. Obviously, the drivers for that bus, a lot of times are our coaches and our staff. They are certified. I mean, they still have to follow all the certifications of bus driver, all of that. But it does give us a little bit more flexibility on that bus that we currently don't have. And so, especially in the summer and different options like that, where we're going to different team camps and different things like that, and they're pretty well, besides summer school, shutting down buses on us, so.
So this is only for the Dragon bus?
It's only for the Dragon bus, yes.
So, one thing I noticed was the termination provision, because it's only for one bus. It says that the lessor has the right to terminate the agreement in the event that they must utilize the vehicle subject to the agreement to fill other obligations they have under the contracts for transportation services. I don't know if that actually would apply to.
It doesn't,
It has to be
because
all over it. This is
it
Dragon,
does,
right?
and it cannot be used for anything other than activities, because it doesn't have a stop arm or a stop sign.
Okay.
So it's almost considered a charter bus instead of a school
So
bus.
that's not probably
Right.
a concern
No.
given.
No,
Okay.
because we've never taken it for a school route or anything like that, so, no.
Do I have a motion for the vehicle lease agreement between the school and or surrounding the Dragon bus?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Grenier.
Second.
Second by Ms. Early. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is updating policy regulation IIAC-R1. I'm going to take a moment before we actually discuss that, just to give a little history of where we have been in the last approximately 8 months or so. In February of '23, the district was made aware of a book concern on social media and proactively sent information about reconsideration to the concerned patron. In March, the district was presented with a list of 80 books that were being disputed. We had numerous citizens address the board expressing concern about the content of books in the library. In April and May, committees were formed in compliance with the then board policy procedure KLB-AP to address the concerns. Additionally, the district provided a restriction form to parents and guardians who wanted to restrict certain titles for their students. In August, after receiving numerous complaints throughout the summer and the difficulties surrounding the reconsideration of materials with the process of the review committee members, the board rescinded the procedure KLB-AP1 and amended the policy KLB on August 29th, and then redirected the evaluation of the 80 books to administration utilizing policy IIAC-R1. From August until now, the board made a statement. These are the things that have ensued. The board made a statement about the book content to the community and stated that we understood that some content may need to be restricted based on grade and age back in September. A district constituent then requested 20 more books be added to the review list. The district staff researched and updated the library Destiny software system and granted access to parents and guardians for their students' library records. The district has audited the graphic novels in the middle school and the high school libraries. The district continues to review the Destiny Library program data and is updating the contents for accuracy, and this is an ongoing process. The administration continues to review the contested materials and will begin to provide an update on specific titles at the December 19th meeting. And now this evening, the board is recommending updating policy IIAC-R1, given the parameters and guidelines to the district staff as it relates to the removal and restriction of library materials. That leads us to the next item on our agenda, which is policy IIAC-R1 and the recommendations in red of the update to that policy. I think I would like to open this up and handle this a little bit different. I think I'm going to ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll have discussion about the way it's written. I am proposing, once we've done that, for an amendment to what has been presented. And so to follow parliamentary procedure, we'll have a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion, and I could present my amendment. Then we would have, if someone wants to second that amendment that I will propose, then we can have discussion around that. Then we would vote on that amendment, or if other people have amendments that they would like to propose, we'll vote on those, and then we'll go back down the ladder to the original motion. So this might be a little different than we don't usually get that far into parliamentary procedure a lot of times on our board, but I kind of wanted to preemptively explain how that was going to work for the audience and for the board. So do I have a motion regarding the recommended changes to policy IIAC-R1?
Pam, can I ask a question first?
Mm-hmm.
I do want to have discussion about what we've got in front of us.
Sure.
Is it possible to have that before a motion is made?
We're supposed to have the motion in the second, and then we can vote it up or down eventually if we want to, but we should have the motion in the second to have the discussion.
I move that we approve the policy IIAC-R1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. So a motion by Dr. Kercher and a second by Ms. Peck. Now I'll open up the floor for discussion.
I feel strongly that I know that everyone wants to make everything as clear as possible for all of the people involved. I am very much in disagreement with the last paragraph that would state that if there is a complaint or concern, that material is immediately reclassified to require the action of a parent. The parents have an opportunity to to restrict materials, and we've been told very few parents have availed themselves of that opportunity. I am not comfortable with a complaint or a concern pulling a book off the shelf. An example I would give, that someone who might not be, who may not believe the Bible belongs on the shelf would come in, raise a concern, and we have to remove the Bible. I cannot support that last paragraph.
I'm not in favor of number 1 and number 3 as well.
Number 1 under restriction.
Restriction by grade age.
Okay.
The material contains obscene material, text without images defined as printed there, and then the material contains pervasively indecent or vulgar language as continued in the number 3. We have restrictions already. Those are available to every parent. Mr. Gilbert, you have a daughter in high school. Have you filled out the restriction form for your daughter?
That's not a matter of public record. That is about my child,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
and you should know better, Mr.
Didn't mean
Kercher.
to ask you that, to embarrass you.
But since you asked me the question, I would like the opportunity to respond. I don't fill out your form because there is no way for a parent to know what is in 33,000 books. I do not have the time or the ability to read 33,000 books to find every book which you have placed in the library for me to go through and restrict them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm
Okay,
gonna
so,
ask
but
that
I'm just not in favor of 1 or 3.
1 or 3. Okay.
I also struggle with 3, and that I think it's vague. Pervasively indecent is a very subjective. I don't know how. Versus I mean, what makes it pervasive? Is it 7 appearances of a word, or I think that's hard to be definite about.
And how do we determine what those words are, and who determines
Right.
who those words are?
Just for some background there, that wording comes directly out of policy IGDBA. I brought that policy with us. It talks about materials that students can hand out to other students. So,
Okay.
just if you want to know what the background of kind of how, so we do already have that wording in another policy, exactly, pretty closely written. And this is the guidelines for distribution of non-curricular student publications.
So like if a student's running for Stuco president and they want to pass out a flyer and they use,
Right. Yeah, or whatever, yeah. I mean,
That
numerous
seems-
scenarios, so. I have concerns about the final paragraph, and so that is the amendment that I had talked about earlier. I would like to make a recommendation to amend the last paragraph to basically remove the very first sentence altogether. So we would remove, in the event that the complaint or concern is made regarding library media material, the material in question will be temporarily classified and require parental pre-authorization prior to checkout by the student during the review process. I am making a motion to amend that, to remove that sentence, and to replace that paragraph with the following. The superintendent shall create a procedure for review of library materials in the event that a complaint is made, taking into consideration the guidelines set forth in this policy. As part of that procedure, any decision made regarding material reconsideration shall be subject to final review by the superintendent and his or her designees, and that's a plural there. The designee is no longer just a designee, it's a plural, so we need more than one individual there.
at the discretion of the superintendent.
The discretion of the superintendent, correct. Yes, so that is the amendment that I'm proposing to the policy changes as stated. I do not want someone to come in and say, I want to restrict these 200 books, and then those 200 books are pulled from the shelf, and we require the rest of every district patron to fill out a pre-authorization form for their child to have access. So I don't think that's in the best interest. And so I'm gonna, that is my, I make that motion. Does anybody need clarification or would like to read that? I do have a printout of the way that's written if it's,
I would take a printout if you have
you want to
it.
pass that around for some,
Sure.
I think I'm,
Oh, I thought you, okay.
just, or I can
No,
pass
that's all
mine
right.
so that you can read it and then I can.
Can I ask a question? One of the things that has been, obviously, the policy 573, or the Missouri State Statute 573,
550.
550. When was that? Was that August of '22 that? Okay. So it would be safe to say that many of these books were brought in before that. I mean, just as a matter of, I mean,
Majority
we
might.
can't say for sure, okay. If we just have in here, we remove the material if it's in violation of that Missouri State statute. Does that, we're talking about two levels of violation. The definition of pornography, which we've been told several times that we do not have in the library, and the
But you do.
explicit sexual material, which is different than pornography. Is that what I'm understanding?
No.
So the state statute is pictures.
Correct. So we are going deeper
So then.
by suggesting that also explicit sexual material, and that is thus described in this new policy. Is that
So the first one is the state statute, number 6
correct?
is the state statute.
Okay.
That addresses the pictures.
Okay.
That would- And from our general understanding, that we're not in violation of that. But if, as we are becoming compliant with the law, and we're allowed
Right.
grace to become compliant with the law. As we become compliant with the law, if we find something, we will remove it. And that, this allows us, it's understood that we would remove it anyway to comply with the law because we do have other policies that state our district staff, specifically policy GBCB, staff conduct states that all staff will follow
The law.
the law. Yeah, so that is covered, and I brought that policy with me as well. If you want to see that, it's the very first on this GBCB. I highlighted it there that states that staff is required to follow state and federal law.
So, in response to the question raised that there is no provision that would prevent these materials from being brought in the first place, we do have that now. Or we
Correct.
recognize that we have it because it says staff will comply with the law.
And
we-
I have talked to the school attorney about that, and
Okay.
she's like, we are covered because as soon as the law goes into place, we assume, but we are allowed an opportunity to get these things in compliance with the law.
Right.
And I think that we've made a very concerted effort to do that.
I think compliance with the law is a given, and it is in the policy, but I also think regardless of whether that was in there, if an employee is breaking the law, I think we have the ability to take employment action as well. I mean, that we're not restricted, if it's not explicit in our policy, to we have employees breaking the law from taking that into consideration, so.
But this, again, to be clear, this would create a barrier to any bringing in of pornographic materials going forward following the enaction of that statute, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Now,
thank you.
we could become even more clear by adding under the first portion of that policy, that we have, we could add, there's objectives for the selection of library materials, and there's 7 points there. We could add a point under number 7, materials are compliant with the state and federal law. I mean, we could add a sentence in there just
For clarity?
for clarity or
I would be in favor.
affirming,
Number 8, provide materials not in violation of Missouri State Statute 573-550.
Right.
that's just
We could add that in there.
to be clear.
So currently, we have a motion on the table and a second for the original, the way it's originally presented. We also have a motion